Warning. This episode of Where Did the Road Go may give you weird dreams. This month's Where Did the Road Go is sponsored by the following awesome individuals. Greg Ross, Allison Cook, Super Inframan, 36 Dingo, Yvonne Williams, and Michael Friske. Thank you so much for helping make this show possible.
Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Soraya.
Welcome to this edition of Where Did the Road Go? And this is Dreams Part 3, and I have Natalie back with us.
Here I am.
And this time, I have James Salsido.
Hello.
Did I say your last name right?
You did.
Okay. And you host Salsido Paranormal.
Yes. Yep, my own podcast. I cover everything paranormal I can, just anything weird. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And we have Adrienne.
Hello.
And Adrienne had lots of dream stuff when I had you on last time, but a lot of it ended up on the Patreon, and you wanted to talk about it on the main show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to share. I've got lots of dream experience.
And when I was initially setting this up, James, you were one of the first people I thought of, but then I ended up with other people and was like, well, I don't want to have like 8 people on this thing. So,
yeah, that's a lot.
So anyway, James, your perspective is different because you are legally blind.
Yes. Funny thing is too about that is I've heard people with low vision or different vision say that they can see better in their dreams than they can in the waking world. And I don't have that. I haven't noticed any difference. I can say that about half of my paranormal, if you want to call it that, half of my weird experiences or more have taken place while I've been asleep, while I've been in dream state or that's been that gateway, however you want to look at that. So I don't know what that means, but that's the way it's been.
And have you been legally blind your whole life?
Yes, I was born legally blind. I had one of the weird dream experiences I had that I felt like more than a dream was, it almost seemed like an alien abduction experience. And after that happened, my vision started changing, started getting worse as far as light sensitivity and eye strain. So I don't know if those two are connected, but they did happen one after the other.
Oh, I remember you talking about that. Yeah. So when you dream, your dreams are basically like you see stuff in regular waking life?
Yes. Yep. The same. Everything looks the same.
So you did have one, wasn't it a paranormal experience where you saw something crystal clear? Like a face or something?
Oh, that was when I was awake, but yes.
Yeah.
I did have that. My first experience, actually, with anything, at least as far as I can remember, I can go into that real quick if you'd like.
Sure, yeah, because I think that's interesting and kind of speaks to all this stuff.
Yeah, and different states of just what consciousness is and what is awake and what is dreaming and all that. So when I was around 13 or 14, I went to visit my cousin, and his family had just moved, my aunt and uncle. They had just moved to a new house, and it was a family of 5, my aunt, uncle, and 3 kids. It was two daughters and 1 son, and I was close with the son. And so they had just moved in, and they were still unpacking. There were still things all over the house that were being unpacked. But my cousin, there was a couch bed in the basement, and my cousin thought it'd be fun to hang out down there and just talk and just make that our room, that whole basement a room, which as a kid, that sounds great, you know. We had no idea any of the sort of tropes there are now about basements and attics being haunted, creepy places, because we weren't into any of that stuff. We were just kids. But so we were, the basement had all the lights were the kind where you had to pull a string to turn it on or off.
Yeah.
So we only had the light on above us, above the couch bed, and the light on above or by the stairway because the bathroom was on the ground floor. And there was things all over the floor, but they had pathways leading everywhere, and they had clotheslines strung up along the ceiling between the support poles and everything, so they could hang up laundry. And they had sheets hanging up on a lot of those lines at the time. And this first night I went over to visit, we were in this couch bed. It was a good-sized couch bed, so we had a lot of room, and just talking. We happened to look into the back of the basement, which is behind the stairs, and of course, so it's the darkest part of the basement, and there was a clothesline strung up along that in that direction with a sheet hanging down, but we both saw something above the clothesline, which these clotheslines were strung up near the ceiling, so I mean at least probably 5.5 feet, maybe taller. I don't really know. I'm not good with knowing numbers of those kinds of things.
Right.
Distances. For obvious reasons, but but there was nothing on the floor. There were no feet. There was nothing for anyone to stand on, but above the clothesline, we could both see just the head of an older woman, and I could see her face too clearly. I've always been extremely nearsighted. Normally, I can't see any details on anyone's face until they're basically a little too close, physically. But I could see this woman's face clearly. I could see glasses. I could see that she was sort of glaring at us and frowning at us, almost like who are you and what are you doing here kind of a look. And yeah, even as a kid, even though I had obviously not done any research into anything yet, I still recognized that it was weird. I shouldn't be able to see what I was seeing so clearly. And I had verification from my cousin, who at the time had regular vision. He was seeing the same thing. And so, yeah, there was other stuff that night, but that was how it started. And the only thing I can think of possibly is some kind of direct, I don't know, link, mind-to-mind link somehow, I guess, is the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how any of this works, but that's the closest thing I can think of to what it could have been.
So how much can you see?
I can see colors. I can see things, especially the closer they are, the better I can see them. I can't judge shades of colors very well. I can tell blue from red, but any kind of shades of red versus each other, that's difficult. So yeah, it's very much the closer it is, the clearer it is, and the further away it gets, the more blurry it gets very quickly.
Okay, all right. And Adrienne, if I remember right, the main dream thing you were having were classes, right? Like school.
Yeah. I went to the same place. I wouldn't say, obviously not every night in my sleep, but over a period of more than 20 years, I went periodically to the same place in my sleep and practiced flying in a very specific way with other humans that were the same age as me. As it progressed, in different stages, I would graduate from one arena and go on to the next. Eventually it stopped, but it's because I completed the program, and I have met other people in this time-space reality that had the same experience as I did. I can't say that I remember those two individuals specifically from that realm, but they had the same exact experience I did.
Now, Natalie, you said you had something somewhat similar?
I didn't have classes about that, but I had, it felt like I was going through training on my own with flying.
Okay.
For about 10 or 15 years.
Okay. How did that start for you? Like, what did it look like where you were when it started, and how did you start practicing?
It was really random each time. Like I kept like I have a very specifically organized dream journal, but all I would do is mark it as a flight journal. Like that was just how I separated out the dreams. So there wasn't anything that was really differentiating them except for the fact that I was flying and that it was progressive each time. So there wasn't anything more organized than that. It would just sort of happen.
Okay.
But it felt like a training thing. There was sometimes one other person there that seemed to be kind of spotting me or something, or helping with tips and things like that. But I don't have any clear memory because these stopped probably like 10 years ago. I have them occasionally still. Like I didn't complete anything, but yeah.
How old were you when they started?
They might have started when I was a teenager, but I just didn't document those, and they were more sparse and I wasn't paying attention to them. So I became more aware of them specifically, and I want to say 2009.
Okay. And then like when you were practicing, what did you have to do in order to practice to fly? Like mechanically, how did that start?
It seemed to be two different things. One was just sort of working with the idea of like I guess like a sandbox reality. So I had a physical form, so to speak, like it was a dream form, but it was very specific. But at least it was it correlated with a real kind of body, like I had senses and things like that. And then there was the more abstract mental I don't know how to put it, like psychic stuff. Like in order to jump from one spot to another, I would have to do something specific mentally that I have no words for. And it's been a long time since I've reviewed these, so unfortunately,
for sure,
it's not fresh on my brain.
Yeah, no worries. I guess I've talked to a lot of people about this, and even the people that weren't having the literal same specific experience that I had, which I'm happy to review for anybody who's not familiar. Like a lot of people have recounted that they practiced the same way, at least in the beginning. And so for me, it was like a running and jumping to sort of catch more air than you can in regular time-space reality, almost like super moon jumps, like a little less gravity with the running and jumping.
And I had that as a kid, but I didn't have it as like a teenager or anything else, and it didn't continue.
Okay.
See, it might have been that when it started. I just don't remember. I remember flying probably as early as like 3 or 4 in dreams. And it was always in a specific kind of dream form that is not necessary. It's humanoid, I guess.
Okay.
But it's something that I have drawn blueprints of and like not like locked down the anatomy. And it just seems to continue evolving as I age. And it's interesting because it's not human. So it has wings and things like that. But it's been interesting because it's something I've had to learn the anatomy of in the dream as I go and how to control that anatomy and how it differs from my waking anatomy.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool.
Well, Adrienne, why don't you tell people what your experiences were?
Yeah, sure. So mine started when I was about 3 or 4, same as you. And when I first had these dreams, they started in these big old-fashioned circus tents, and there were tons of other kids in there with me. It was very busy, and there'd be these like animal jumps. And I always make like a Nintendo reference. I make a Super Mario Brothers reference. I'm going to age myself here. But when I was little, we had Super Mario 3 for the regular Nintendo. And if you played it with the Game Genie, very specific, you could put on a super moon suit and do these super moon jumps. And so that's the reference that I always make, like with running and jumping and sort of just catching more air. And when I would wake up from these dreams, I would feel high, like not drug high, like spiritual high, and I would have tears streaming from my face, and it made real waking life feel flat compared to what home felt like, which is where it felt like I was practicing flying. And so I'd wake up really upset that I was here and not there, and sort of like this complete peace and loving feeling from this other place. Like, oh, I remember that. That's so familiar. That's where I'm supposed to be. And then after a few minutes, when I was really little, I would completely forget. I would emotionally forget. I would physically forget until the next time I had one of these dreams. Maybe it was a few days later. Maybe it was a few months later. Realistically, looking back, I think that I probably had to feel pretty safe in order for me to go there in my sleep. So it was somewhat sporadic. But when I would go back, I would continue from my last point of like working on it. And it took years before I graduated from the circus tents to like the next like level of classes, basically. Maybe middle school by the time I graduated, maybe high school to the next place. And not that many of us continued, compared to how many were in the circus tents. And at the next level, we were in warehouses, big abandoned, empty warehouses. And instead of running and jumping, I would just close my eyes and concentrate on my third eye and breathe in really deeply and levitate. And that was how we practiced the second stage. Once we got used to the feeling of not having as much gravity, we were able to do that instead. I was definitely always in a human feeling looking body to the best of my knowledge. And there were no words spoken in this place, all like just telepathy involving emotions, concepts, but no actual language. Other than symbolism, I suppose. And then, by the time, probably toward the end of the first section where we were doing the running and jumping in the tents, I no longer had amnesia. I remembered all the dreams all the time, waking or asleep or whatever. It was always there. Eventually, I didn't forget. That continued. I eventually, what was interesting too is we were always in an enclosure. It was never something that was practiced outside. And once we got to this levitation stage, we'd get to the top and the ceiling would stop us. Like my back would just go like straight up to the ceiling sort of, and I'd be looking down. And I had this very special therapist when I was younger, and he was more of like a Western guru. And I remember I went to him and I said, there's all these ceilings and these flying dreams and they're keeping me back and I don't understand. And he just said, well, if you're in the astral realm, there is no ceiling. There's nothing physical there. So I want you to ask yourself to have one of those dreams when you go to sleep tonight. And when you have that dream, when you get to the ceiling, I want to just go through it. So I said, okay. And I did. And I had one of those dreams that night. And I got to the ceiling and I went completely through it. And it was like the most intense ego death you could possibly imagine. I ceased to be a person. I ceased to be me. I ceased to be separate. It was the brightest white purple light I've ever seen. And then I just kind of got pulled into it and absorbed by it. But it felt really good. Like it felt good. It wasn't bad or scary or anything. So the next week when I went in for therapy, he asked me what happened and I told him and he just said, yeah, that makes sense. I was like, cool. I was like 19 or 20, he said, I said, do you want to explain it to me? And he said, no, it's not for me to explain to you, basically. So flash forward and, I graduate from the warehouses and the next stage, cause I've mastered the levitation part in my dreams and we're going on decades here of me having this, happen in my sleep. And then at this point I'm in arenas. It starts off small, like smaller sort of auditorium type halls. And I'm at a podium. And again, there's no words, but I'm like people approaching or walking by and I'm motioning and it feels like urgency, not panic, but urgency. Like, this is important. I need to show you this. Come here. A lot of urgency. It feels really powerful and really special. Like I have to show everybody. And when these dreams start where I'm teaching, at first there's maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 people that I'm showing and we're doing the same thing. We're still inside though, and there's still ceilings and the ceilings are still stopping us. And so I'm teaching these people how to levitate. And as time goes on and I have more of these dreams, the stadiums get bigger or the auditoriums become arenas, become stadiums. And, time space doesn't work the same way in the astral realm. So eventually there are like millions of people that I'm teaching how to do this inside these stadiums. And as a human growing up in Western culture in this time, we're so narcissistic as a society. I don't mean anybody individually. I mean all of us. I just mean the way that we think. Like it's crazy. The individualism that we live with, it permeates everything. So for most of my life, I thought it was really special when I was supposed to teach people something, which I think is hysterical. Because once I finally broke these dreams down, I realized it was literally telling me the exact opposite. And I have met a couple other people that were there, for a long time because it felt so real to me. Or at least other people who received the same lesson in their sleep. It felt so real to me that I'm looking for other people that were there. So when I would meet people or sometimes I'd post on Facebook, I have a large internet following because of my art. I would just ask like, hey, have you ever had flying dreams? And if you have, do you mind telling me about them? Because I didn't want people to like anecdotally say that they were there. I wanted it to have my own sort of anecdotal evidence that they had the same experience. And 2 different people literally told me the same thing. This one woman said, yes, when I was little, we were in these old fashioned circus tents and there were these animal jumps and we would run and jump and catch air. And I had asked her what happened after that when she graduated from the tents. And she said she never graduated from the tents. She watched other people graduate and she didn't. And eventually she stopped going there in her sleep. And then I found another person, a man I know who is involved in my industry. And he gave the same reference. He said, yeah, when I was a little kid, I started in these old fashioned circus tents. And he even made a Mario reference. He made a Princess Peach reference. Apparently she moved similarly in Mario too. And I asked him, he had responded to a Facebook post. And so I private messaged him. And it was funny because the first thing I said was, what happened after the circus tents? And he said, you mean the warehouses? And I was like, yes. And so he described the warehouse, lessons the same exact way. He said the same thing, And so I said, when you mastered the warehouses, did you go teach? And he said, no, I rescued. And so in his dream space, when he mastered the same exact program, which is wild, that I went through, instead of him teaching people, he would be like flying above like cities that were burning or, these like catastrophic scenes, and he would swoop down and rescue people. So I don't know what that means for him in his whole like life journey. I just know that he had the same lesson I did for some reason. And I know, like, statistically, I don't know, there are tons of people and our brains are all connected because we're one big conscious organism. Like, I get that. But I think that we're being taught things in our sleep. We're going to other realms.
Yeah, I've been taught plenty of things in my sleep. It just wasn't usually flying. What did you take out of it? You said that it wasn't about you teaching people.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So I very only recently actually figured this out, and I laughed and laughed and laughed myself, which is good. I'm glad that I can have some humor about it. So I started thinking about, why am I always in an enclosure? Why is there always an enclosure over me? Why, when that therapist told me to go through the enclosure, why did that experience happen? And so I looked symbolically, into what that could mean. And this is what I've come up with. And, my belief system is fluid. I get new data all the time, so my belief system changes. This is where I'm at. And I don't see this interpretation budging, but never know. So I think that all of those man-made structures that were appearing over me in these dreams were representative of like organized religion. And I think that I was being shown what it feels like to be a preacher, to be a prophet, to be like, I got this message. It's really important that I show you. And I got to experience this firsthand, because humans don't learn by learning. We learn by doing.
Yeah.
Like we literally learn by emotional experience. And so I was shown that this is not the way. Like, don't do that. Because what happened when I went through the ceiling is I was connected with source. So my interpretation of this, instead of being like, you're going to get a download that you need to tell everybody about, which is what I thought it was forever, is more, like, be really careful what you try to teach people, because you could be wrong and holding them back from whatever their thing is, and I got to feel what it's like to feel like you're right, and to be able to touch this source energy that feels really intense and want to show everybody earnestly, thinking that you're doing good, but still maybe holding people back, because it's not my place to tell anybody what to think. It's not I'm just a person. It's not my place to teach anybody how to feel about their experience spiritually. And so that, I think, was what I was supposed to learn from that. And it's funny, because until I figured it out, it literally seemed like the exact opposite, which is also part of the lesson. That makes sense.
James, have you had any flying dreams?
No, I have not. I've had, most of mine they seem like they've been out-of-body experiences, or they've been, only thing I could think of is some kind of alternate parallel universe or dimension kind of dreams. So, but no, I have not had the flying ones. I think that's fascinating.
Now,
I had a different set of flying dreams when I was younger, but it was just like an escape. I would not even necessarily be in a body. I wasn't aware of a body. I was just aware of consciousness and an awareness. And I would drift above what looked like Earth, but without civilized humans. I can't say there weren't humans there. I saw no evidence of civilization, and it felt amazing and peaceful. It was always dusk. So I think symbolically that's the precipice of change, or the next something or other, but it was just an escape that I had when I was a kid, and I would go there all the time, and it was peaceful. And that's all I have for flying is those two things.
Any of that connect with you, Natalie?
It's inspiring me to review what I remember, but unfortunately I'm going to have to pull them up. So, but I have my laptop here, so I'm going to actually start reading while I was just listening. So I don't want to start reading, but, a couple of things come to mind is just it's making me review in terms of, background and how I was raised versus you. I don't know what your religious background is. I don't know how much bearing that has on these dreams.
I wasn't raised with any religion.
Do you feel like it had an more of a peripheral impact on you then?
I wasn't raised with religion at all. We celebrated Christmas as a commercial thing. Do you know what I mean? My mom wasn't atheist. My mom used language that was Christian Hallmark sort of language, but she talked a lot about themes that were more Hindu, broader Hindu themes, like reincarnation and karma and stuff. So I just grew up with a general spiritual sense of be a good person and do good things, but no religion at all.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same. I grew up with, I think both, well, my dad had been raised fairly heavily Catholic after I from what I understand, they converted very strongly from Judaism and Romani sorts of. So they really kind of went ham on the whole Catholicism, but he never really had any influence on me with that. He just let me choose my own way. And I think he was more like a pagan Catholic. He kind of chose, he kind of approached it like a pantheon of sorts. And he always taught me about pagan stuff. When we did Christmas stuff, he would teach me the history of it and the pagan influence and roots and things. So my parents really they didn't push me one direction or the other. They offered me a children's Bible at one point. My mom read it with me just to see what I thought. And then I just kind of made my decisions from there. But she was an atheist at the time, or agnostic. I think she had she'd gone from atheism to agnosticism at that point. So I don't have a lot of influence as far as that's concerned, just sort of like peripheral teaching. And they were both educated, and like my dad was into data and stuff like that. And he was a graphic artist. So they didn't really have any influence on that. So I don't know about that portion, but it was definitely impacting me from the sidelines, with friends. And I was forced to go to church once when I was 3 years old, and that definitely had an impact on me. Not a favorable one. So I don't know, that was just about it. Like, it was educational. I definitely remember it clearly, but that was about it. But it made me think, the other thing was the ceiling thing. And that varies from dream to dream when I fly. And for me, it definitely correlates to how much control I feel like I have in my life at the time, how trapped I feel. How many choices I feel I have, which is commonly none, but I will try to break through the ceiling, or I'll find a door out before I try to fly. So I don't know. I don't know if there's been a dream where I've actually broken through the ceiling. I think it's more that I find a door and then go straight up.
Okay. Oh, I like that new little sort of spin on what I was seeing. It didn't change my other interpretation, but it added to it. I also, for most of my life, have been very trapped in various situations and been under horrific control, and not felt like I had a lot, of control, or just personhood. So I can see how that would apply to my experience as well.
Yeah, that's definitely what I was kind of the takeaway, not maybe immediately. I was just saying, but I saw the correlation eventually, like that.
No, and that makes sense. And even though I wasn't raised with a specific religion, the structure of my home was so culty and patriarchal that it's the same energy. It's the same thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That I would say that, I mean, one could argue that so many religions are basically that. So it's the same kind of thing. It's the same feeling.
Well, yeah, they
construct.
Kind of all are. I mean, they kind of all are. But yes. Yeah. So, I mean, it still relates, because it's like I was just relating that to your question about my background, my religious background, not specifically religious, but all of the components of the rules of my home were based on the same stuff, regardless of it not being called those things and us not going to church.
That's fascinating. I mean, and so the ceiling thing for me, went a little bit, because, so I know that these dreams, they I assume, and they feel like they're generally based on just deep subconscious things. So the environment will be built from those elements. But there are instances where I will take off and be spun violently it just keeps going. Like, it just doesn't stop. I will continue to ascend at great speed, and it is jarring. And at that point, I at some point, I think in 2011, I learned that is when I can enter the tunnel. It's basically just like this infinite probability that I enter if I get a control of it, or like a control of myself.
Okay.
And so I will, if I start to get grab control where I'm just not spinning up into ascension anymore, I just enter this tunnel, and then I can wait. I can try to control. Generally, I don't have any real good, or at least not at this point, good control over where I exit that tunnel. So it can be really random, generally into just like another lucid dream. But I have had a couple instances where it was uncannily like remote viewing, and something did happen afterward that honestly was pretty upsetting. Because afterward, there was something that seemed way too similar to what I'd experienced, and it correlated with the time and everything. So.
You mean like like it turned into a premonition?
No, I'll give you an example. So I'm trying to find it now, because I know I logged part of it, but the rest was so upsetting I don't think I did. My friend at the time had a friend, and that friend was having a very difficult time and feeling just really having massive struggles. And so they were on my mind to begin with. The dream that I entered into, where it was, I think I was just flying in it. I think I entered into it flying as the creature I mentioned. I don't remember actually, taking off or anything like that. So I was already in that state, and I was just trying to control myself. As I was flying over a lake, and I remember it was overcast. I could feel everything. It was cold air. There was a lot of wind. It was very visceral. And I started realizing that I was going towards some suburbs. And then I became aware that it was Chicago, and I hadn't even been to Chicago at that point, but I'd had numerous dreams for some reason. Like, it was this weird dream hub for me of all places.
Did you move there later?
Was that?
Did you move there later?
No, I mean, I've been there now, obviously.
Okay.
Like, I, it just wasn't really a known place to me. So I was trying to map out the suburbs I was seeing because I was so high above. And then I remember just kind of finding a house. I'm like, wait, that's where this guy lives, this person. And so I flew down to the house and I just sort of went through the wall or like the window or something like that. And he was lying in bed and just looked distraught. And I went and stood over him and just looked at him and like, is he okay? And at that point, he looked at me and panicked. He just shot up and started screaming. And I woke up because obviously that was upsetting. I want to say it was the next night. It was either the next night or the night after that. This person made a post online and said had been gone a couple days because they'd had this horrible experience 2 nights before, where they saw this entity standing above them in the bed and when he was lying in bed, and then shot up screaming and panicked and couldn't get back to sleep and was just basically had like a mental breakdown. And I felt like, what are the chances of that happening?
Yeah.
And the way he described it was, he didn't see much, but he saw like eyes and that was it. And it really upset me. And I just had to like crack down after that. I'm like, I'm never doing that again. I wasn't trying to do any harm. It was really, it was really uncanny and scary. Might have just been a coincidence.
Did you tell him about your experience?
I did not. I was absolutely terrified to meddle at all anymore in that situation. He did improve after that. I at least can say that much. The situation improved for him, but like, I just felt like I had done more harm than good, but if it had anything to do with it, it was just a weird.
Is that your only experience with remote viewing?
No, but it was the one where, because I didn't really know this person. He was just a friend of a friend, right? Or, he wasn't really my friend. He was just this friend's friend.
Okay.
And he's just on my mind because I was really worried because he was feeling suicidal. He was having a tough time. So I guess I realized where I was in that dream and just wanted to check on him. And then this happened. So like I said, it just, I don't think he'd ever posted anything strange before then, though. That was the one thing that stood out to me is he was not a paranormal kind of person. He just didn't have those experiences. He was quite a grounded person. I think that's what scared me the most. So I don't know. I saved it somewhere and I never really revisited it because it was so upsetting. But
so
yeah.
Salsido, you said a lot of your stuff has been out of body.
Yes, that's really fascinating. It makes me think of a couple of experiences I had where I went, and the weird thing, I don't know if this is common or not, but I never try to have these experiences. They just sort of end up happening. I don't know if it's my subconscious or what it is. But I did visit my grandparents' house a lot over the years. I especially went there a couple of times after my grandfather had passed, my grandpa had passed, and I think it's because I was thinking of my grandma and wondering if she was okay and everything, and hoping she was okay. And because I remember I went there one time, I appeared there basically. I never experienced going to the location, like the journey of it from my place to wherever I'm going. I always just find myself there. And I found myself in the dining room of my grandparents' house, and I was looking into the living room because I could see my grandma there sitting in her chair. Looked like she was playing solitaire on the living room coffee table. And at first I wanted to reach out because I was really curious. And I was just excited to see her. And then I just stopped and I froze because the first thing that came to mind is what would she see? What would she hear?
Yeah.
How do I even know, what I didn't have a sense of any kind of like a physical sense or any sense of what I was there. All I knew was I was there somehow. My consciousness was there. I don't know. And so I didn't do anything. I just sort of stayed in one place. It felt like I was sitting on the floor in the dining room, actually. Is the only thing I could say. But I didn't. It was a very vague sense. So I don't know if that's what I was really doing or not. But eventually, I started getting tired, and I closed my eyes and ended up back home. I had one other experience where I had an out-of-body experience, and I was back at the house where my aunt and uncle used to live. They had moved out of there years ago, and I was in the basement again, funny enough, where I had that first experience, but it was in the middle of the day, and which is not unusual for me. I sleep sometimes during the day for more than I sleep at night. And I remember hearing voices from upstairs on the ground floor. I didn't recognize them, but I was just fascinated by being there again. So I started going up the stairs, and I got all the way to the top of the stairs, and I could hear them better, and I realized I didn't recognize those voices. And I just froze because I was wondering, again, what would I look like? What would I sound like?
Yeah.
And I didn't want to freak anyone out. That was the biggest thing. I was so curious. I wish I could have arranged something like that where I could have someone know that I was coming so I could then have them tell me, but I never had that. I never thought about trying to set that up.
Yeah, but if you told them ahead of time, though, it might, push the results one way or another because they're expecting to see something.
Yes. So I just stopped. I never actually went through with anything and I do wonder how often in places, how often is a ghost not a spirit? How often is it, again, another living person just having that experience, and whether they meant to or not? And I think there's probably so many cases where they don't mean to, because I know I never have.
Yeah, that I've had experience with, and it's also a whole story I've never really told anybody in full.
Okay.
So, yeah, I've had a lot of experiences with out of body. Most of the time, though, I go to places that I don't recognize until I go there in person years later. So, which is always odd.
I remember that story. Yeah, that was a weird one.
Yeah, I've had a few examples of that, of going to a place where I didn't recognize it. The first one that I can remember clearly is I had this dream about being in a really small office area. And it was just one desk, one chair, but there was a window behind it, and there was some light coming in. It was dark outside, but there was a street light outside, I'm guessing, where some light was coming in. And I had this dream, and I just was there, and then everything faded, and I was not there anymore. Years later, I did this work-study co-op thing through school where I got to see what it was like to work in an office building. And one day while I was there, one of the people there in charge said, "Take this file to so-and-so." And they told me where to go and everything. And so I followed their directions. They had these walls made up of filing cabinets in this office area, and I followed where they said to go, and I wound up in this little one-desk office with one desk, one chair, and a window behind it. And I realized this is where I had been years before, but it had been night there then, but it was daytime when I was there in person. And I had to make myself walk away from there quickly, because otherwise I would have just been standing there looking at everything, and everyone would have wondered the person would have wondered what I was doing there,
right?
Just standing around. But it was really fascinating, and it had happened over and over again.
Yeah, it's not the one I remember. I think the one you told on the show before was a longer one.
And I thought about today. I realized I could have gone over the shows that I've been on before with you, Soraya, and I just totally forgot. And
that happens.
Haven't done that. So I have no idea which one it was because I have so many. I've tried to do shows that cover all my experiences, and it took a few hours total, I think.
I'm sure. Natalie, you said you had something dream-wise that you found recently?
Dream-wise in terms of what?
I don't know. You said something when we were starting about you found something crazy or something.
Oh, no, that was just, that was related to being very tired and just, I'm underslept, so my brain is not pieced together. But no, I realized when I wrote a dream recently, yesterday, I think, I'd have to look again, but apparently I don't remember writing the first part of it. For one full paragraph, I don't remember it. The rest I do. And for that paragraph, I wrote it in, I was referring to myself in the third person. I have never done that before. I've never seen that before. It just kind of blew me away, and it was kind of horrifying. I don't know why I was doing that. I was saying you instead of I. It was, and I had no recollection of that part of the dream or writing it or anything. So, I mean, it was interesting that in that state, I was that dissociated. I was saying you instead of I. It wasn't that interesting, but it was definitely.
Have any of you had dreams that you were other people?
Yes.
And how different was that person to you?
When I was a little kid, I used to have dreams that I was a boy, and I was very confused about why. And it hasn't happened since I was little, so I don't know.
Okay. Did you say yes or no, Salsido?
I said no, but I have there was one time, and it was part of a whole series of events, but I can go into that later if there's time. But it was strange. It was like a duality thing. Like it was me, but it wasn't me. But I can go into that later because it's part of a whole kind of a ghost story kind of thing.
Okay. What about you?
Oh yeah, still to this day, pretty frequently, probably once a month at least.
I have a lot of what I think could be called past life dreams too, but I'm not sure that it was like my past life. I'm just like tapping into other lives that have been lived. And sometimes I'm able to look them up, which is kind of interesting.
Okay. That is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the sparse records that are kept beyond a certain point.
Well, sometimes it's if it's famous people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's obvious that it's famous people, even if I don't know which famous people. It seems like a grand life with a lot of, you know what I mean? Like I'm able to look things up. And I discovered because of that, I came to the conclusion that they weren't probably past life memories, because I don't think I was necessarily like really famous people in past lives. And I came to the conclusion that I thought it was more like lessons again, because if the universe speaks to us in symbols, me being shown a past life that I can't look up or understand the symbolism of isn't going to help me a lot.
Right.
So it would sense that there would be symbolism of lives that would make sense for me to reference or to look up. And so I just started to look into that rather than thinking that I was special, which makes a lot more sense.
Okay. I mean, I've had dreams like I'm almost like a character in a movie. Like sometimes it's me, but not me. And there's at least once I can remember dreaming that I was a woman who was trying to figure out who killed someone or something like that. I don't have the details in front of me. But I was just kind of like, wow, I think that's the first time I dreamed I was a woman. Interesting.
It's obvious when you're the opposite sex in your dream. It's just knowing, like when she was talking about how she just suddenly knew it was Chicago. It's just like a knowing. You're like, oh, I'm a totally different person here.
Yeah. Well, Natalie apparently just forms into entities.
That's amazing.
To be fair, on the Chicago one, I saw something on the skyline that let me know I knew it was Chicago then. I don't remember which building it was. I'm like, oh, this is the Chicago skyline.
Are you the Chicago Mothman?
That's right. There is one there. Yeah. That's right. Oh, no. After I had this dream, somebody's like, hey, what about that? And I was like, oh, no, don't do that. To my knowledge, it was just once, but who knows what I get up to in my dreams when I'm not looking.
I'm always amazed when people don't remember any dreams. I have numerous friends who remember no dreams whatsoever.
Must be nice.
Really? See,
sometimes, when I'm, like I said last time, when I'm writing 4 pages, yeah.
Yeah, I don't write with that kind of detail.
I'm trying not to. I'm trying to take Cliff's notes here.
I would say you're
just bad at it.
Remembering. If I'm not remembering my dreams, I'm not getting good sleep.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
I mean, that's a good point, because you're dreaming when you're in REM.
Yeah.
And that's like, you're replenishing
I have a lot
sleep.
of chronic illness. And if I'm really sick and I'm not sleeping enough, like all the way through, I don't remember my dreams because I'm just not getting there.
There was one time I think it was like a para-influenza or something. I wasn't horribly sick, but sick enough. And I noticed every time I went to sleep and dreamt, I got a little bit better. Like I felt better each time I woke up, like incrementally.
Do all of you write down your dreams? I know Natalie does, and I do.
I do not. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, one of you should talk.
Oh,
James.
Okay. Sorry. I do not. Just mainly because I would have to go to my computer to type them out.
Right.
And I don't think of it like it's too. I guess when I'm getting up or waking up, it's too far to think about to go over there to do that. So I don't. I don't write down any of my paranormal experiences. I wish I would think to do that when they happen. I guess I have enough here and there, like once a week, I don't know, maybe twice a week sometimes. I just don't think about it. It's like, oh, that was kind of odd. Oh well. If I need to remember it later, I'll remember it. If something reminds me of it, then that's how it goes. That's how I remember things. But yeah, no, I wish I could get myself to do that. I just have not had any success with that yet.
Have you tried voice dictation?
No, because I don't like talking into my, like, I don't know. I don't like the sound of my own voice, first of all.
I get that. Yeah, I understand.
Like I don't even listen to my own recordings anymore. Than like, okay, the audio is working. All right, good. And then I put it out there.
Yeah, I never listen to myself.
Yeah, I know I should. I can never get myself to do it.
Most people do not like the sound of their own voice, especially because when they hear it back on a recorded medium, it sounds different from what they hear in their head.
Yes, definitely.
I'll be honest, I don't like listening to myself at all, even right now.
And what about you, Adrienne? Do you write them down?
So I used to when I was younger. I had a dream journal. I kept it next to my bed, which is mostly how I remember a lot of the sort of random dreams I had when I was younger. But I only have so much executive function these days. And I am writing so many books right now. So not anymore because I have to concentrate what I'm writing into other things.
So what other types of dream experiences have well, let's go with James. What other types have you had?
Well, I've had let's see, I've covered the out of body. I've had experiences that the closest I can think that they may be is some kind of a temporary transfer or visit to an alternate or parallel universe kind of a situation. And I've had a few different versions of that. I had one where I was back in this house where I used to live in with my mom and my former stepdad with them, and they were still together, and their daughter was there, my half sister. But in this other world, they had 3 daughters, not just the one, and we were all just visiting, and I was staying there, and it felt normal until I started waking up, and I realized, wait, they had one kid, they had one daughter. So that was odd, and I could maybe write that off as my own brain making up weird things. I did start off when I was a teenager into my 20s. I did some writing. I used to like to write a lot. But I had another experience where I went to bed one night and I felt myself fall slightly and hit this couch, or hit something, and I realized after it was the couch, the living room couch. And I heard footsteps on the stairs, and I was back in the same house, or a version of the same house. And this little boy came down the stairs and around the corner. And he looked like, again, my mom and my former stepdad. They never had a son. And my mom came down the stairs, but I got a sense, it felt like it was her, but it wasn't exactly her. And she started comforting me like, it's okay, everything's okay. And the other sense I got from that was almost like this had happened to her before, which was startling to me because, to my memory, this had never happened to me before when this happened. But it was almost like she recognized that somewhat of a difference in me the same way I recognized a difference in her. Okay. And I've had several other ones, but yeah, that's the best way I can think of it or describe it, is sort of like what felt like I had transferred somehow or into another different outcome of reality. And I don't know what that is, but I've had so many that now I just kind of try to go with it and try to stay calm and wait for it to end, and to get back here.
That reminds me of what I was saying with exiting the tunnel into infinite probabilities. And a lot of those end up being like a slightly different reality that I'm in, but it will feel exactly like a reality. It feels like I'm there almost.
Yes, yeah. And I've had, and it would be okay if they were all positive experiences. I wouldn't mind so much. But I had a couple of negative ones. So to the point where, like, I'd rather not have any more of those experiences. I had one where I once I got there, again, it was just to the same house. Not all of them are to the same house, but a lot of these were. Only thing is, when I realized that I was there again, I tried to, I was staying there for a long time. Like, I was in there longer than usual. And so I thought, well, I just need to get tired and or fall asleep again somehow. And I tried like 2 or 3 times, and I kept on ending up back there again until I finally was able to sleep and I got back here. And I say that I don't know how else or what else to say other than that's how it felt. The other negative experience was with people that I know that are very good family, very good loving family members that in this dream basically tried to attack me, and it didn't make any sense. They've never, they're, like I said, they're not that kind of people, but in this other place they were. But we were in a setting where one of them had not been in the family yet at the time that in the location where we were. In other words, the house that we were in was occupied by family before this newer family member had ever met any of us. So it didn't track chronologically, but it also felt like more than a dream.
I had a bunch of, pretty much every night, my mom's in my dreams since she died, but it never feels like her. Like, it always just feels like a remnant. Like, it's never felt like, oh, this is actually my mom. There were a couple of times where I wondered, and I stopped and went, are you real? No, nope, you're just like some kind of shell, some kind of memory. But there was one dream I had after Jeff Ritzmann died that kind of freaked me out a little bit, where I never got to meet Jeff in real life, despite us trying to plan stuff out a few times. And his dying was very sudden and unexpected. And sometime after he died, I had a dream where I was at his house, and there were tons of people there, and it was actually kind of annoying. And I went out on the back porch, and he was standing on his back porch. I have no idea if he had a back porch. And I kind of looked over at him, realized I was dreaming, and went, well, really wish I got to meet you in real life. And everything changed all of a sudden. And he just kind of looked at me and went, why do you think you're here now? And then I woke up and I'm like, wait, no, damn it.
That's awesome.
That's fascinating. And I do wonder about that. That is the other type that I forgot to mention, where I have had visitations from loved ones, mostly my grandma. I have a funny story. It's a quick one about this one time I fell asleep listening to the very first book by Robert Monroe.
Okay.
It's Journeys Out of the Body. That's what it was. And I fell asleep in my chair, and while I was listening to it, so I do that too much. I wish I wouldn't do that while I was trying to listen to audiobooks. And I found myself in my grandparents' house, and my grandparents were both there. This is years after they both passed already. And I was hearing this voice, like it was someone reading an audiobook, in the house. And I was annoyed because I wanted it to stop. I wanted to get it to stop because my grandparents were there. I was excited to see them again. And it felt like it was actually them. And they were just sitting there and smiling and looking at me. And I was wandering the house trying to figure out where the sound was coming from, which is hilarious because I remember I saw one of my old laptops on the dining room table. And the symbolism did not hit me until after I woke up. Like, oh, if I could have just gone to that laptop, I wonder if I could have turned off the sound there in that world using that laptop somehow. I don't know. But eventually my grandma laughed, and because I kept on asking, where's that sound coming from? And she laughed and said, it's coming from you, James. And I just stopped, and I woke up laughing because I realized it was somehow that audiobook I was hearing it in this dream, I don't know, visitation experience thing. And it took my grandma to tell me, it's coming from you. And I was so annoyed, but also it was hilarious. Like, why? You know, it still cracks me up to think about that.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll be right back. Hey, quick mid-show break here. Some contact info, wheredidtheroadgo.com. You can find everything there. Links to everything I do in the link tree, contact emails in the contact section, and shows going back to very first one back in 2013. My God. All right, so you can also become a patron. It's only $3 a month. You get extra content with almost every show, plus bonus content on top of that, the show's a week early, commercial free, etc., etc., and it helps out immensely. So if you like the show, that's the best way to support. Also by sharing and giving us good ratings wherever you're listening to us, that also helps immensely. All right, my recommendation for this week is a movie I just watched, and I think Brennan recommended it, if I'm not mistaken. It's called Older Gods. It came out in 2023, and it is, I'll read the description on IMDb. A man descends into madness as he tries to investigate an apocalyptic cult that caused the death of his friend. That's not inaccurate, but it's very, very Lovecraftian. Even though they don't really use any of the Lovecraftian terms, it is cosmic horror. It is pretty much straight from Lovecraft, really. And it was very, very good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And you can find it on Tubi, and you can also find it on Amazon Prime. So that I recommend, even if most people don't seem to like it that much. I only got a 4.7 out of 10. I gave it a 9 out of 10, if it tells you how much I liked it. So it is a slow burn, but I thought it was really cool. Plus, anything that's Lovecraft-based kind of goes up a few points for me usually, even if it's not the greatest thing in the world. It was a more independent movie. I think they said they shot it in 14 days or something like that. So it's, yeah, that's my recommendation. Older Gods. Now back to the show. So you're listening to Where Did the Road Go? And we have Natalie, mostly awake, I think.
Yep.
We have Adrienne.
Hello.
And we have James Salsido of Salsido Paranormal.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
And so this is a time. So I mentioned earlier I get taught things in dreams, but it's not quite like the flying thing. They will, whatever they are, I don't know what they are, but they'll show me very specific things, and it feels like I'm being taught something. And a lot of times it becomes something practical that I can use, although a lot of it is like energy work and stuff. I mean, I was basically taught how to do Reiki without ever knowing I was being taught how to do Reiki. But there are times where I will experience, I want to say like emotions or feelings that I don't think I've ever felt in real life. So like there was one time I was in some kind of haunted house, and there was a kid and an older woman with me, and we were like investigating the place, and there was a set of stairs, And I don't remember the details now, but one of them said, don't go up the stairs. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go up the stairs. And they're like, no, don't go up the stairs. It's really bad. And so I got about halfway up the stairs and I experienced a feeling that was so awful. And I can't even give you an analogy to something I've ever felt in real life. And I had to force my way up the rest of the way up the stairs. But it was mildly devastating to do, but I refused to come back down, even though they were urging me to come back down. And when I got to the top, it was like this multi-dimensional space. And I've had other things like that happen, or like where I'm having a dream and suddenly it's not a dream anymore. The one that sticks out to me right off the top of my head was being in what was like a local record store. And as I'm leaving, suddenly I get stopped and I realize, oh, I'm dreaming, except I'm in this circle at the entranceway to the store. And these beings are going, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you? And I'm honestly going, I don't know, because most of the bad things led to good things. So how do I judge which is the worst? And they're showing me images of things that happened to me, except they're not the actual things. They're like different variants of what happened. And eventually I picked something and they let me wake up.
Oh, weird.
Any of you have anything like that?
So not exactly like that, but something that is not a dream in a similar way. So there are, I think, 7 or 8 different places that I go to in my dreams where there are these different, I know they're connected somehow. There are these different houses, and the houses often are connected to places that I've actually lived. But usually when they show up in my dreams, it's before I've lived there, so I'm getting sort of like a premonition of a place that I'm going to live. And they're all on the water or like in the water. They're like houseboats, or they're directly on a lake, or they're directly on the ocean. I have lived waterfront a lot, so that does track. But in my more recent adulty years, like in the past 10 years or so, sometimes I'll go somewhere in the dream where I discuss with a council. I don't know what that means. That's just the word that I'm going to use to refer to them, where they explain to me the connections between these water houses. So it doesn't feel exactly dreamlike, since it's a dream space where there's a council of beings who are more intelligent than I am that are explaining the connection of these other dreams. But that's all I got. I don't have enough memory of it to give any more detail. Just when I wake up, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I wish I could remember what they said. But the feeling is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's many times I've been told profound things in dreams that when I wake up, I'm like, I can't translate that.
Yeah, I know what the concept feels like, but
yeah,
words are escaping me. Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Natalie?
I mean, I don't know what to add to that. Just I mentioned to you when we were thinking of topics and things that I had that very early on with, I think it started in 2004 for me. But it's not the same thing. It was very nebulous. It was as if I was trying to calibrate my brain to pick up on these signals of these intelligences or something. I don't know if it was just me connecting my brain to my subconscious, but it was intense. It became an every night thing for weeks one summer, I think 2005, to the point where I had to put a stop to it because I wasn't really sleeping. I'd get up and like stagger to the bathroom and it would still continue. A lot of it was without any kind of vision. It was just these pure concepts, and it was like a conversation. They would ask me a lot of questions, whatever they were, and I would start getting put through these rigorous tests of perception. Then that was probably the most organized thing. It wasn't related to the flight things. It was more like I would be immersed in a scene that was extremely realistic to the point where I wasn't sure if I was awake or asleep, so sort of lucid, but I had no control over it. It was more like an observer state. And they would tell me to see past what I was seeing because all I was seeing was my expectations, and that the dream was built on those expectations, and they were trying to show me something else. So it was like this systematic training every night. It was exhausting, and I actually ended up getting like an autoimmune attack from it, or seemed to relate to it. That's how it ended up, like being something I felt like my body just couldn't handle anymore. And I had to at least mitigate it or put a stop to it for a while. But it was fascinating because it reminds me of, it was like people I've talked to that have done a lot of psychedelics and entheogens, but they did it all at once, or it would be like just sort of just immersed in it aggressively. But the same kinds of feelings and pure concepts being translated into something they could understand through this communication that it didn't entirely feel like them. Like, obviously, it was like their subconscious and everything sort of coming up. But it was more like, it was almost like this external thing that was coming up through my unconscious and then trying to clear the unconscious clutter so that I could see what they were trying to communicate to me, if that makes sense. So that was the only testing and training I've really experienced. And then it's just, once I put a stop to it, it was still happening. And I'd have initiation dreams with different entities and things, but it wasn't the same caliber. It wasn't as intense.
Natalie, that sounds incredible. And I can see, I can understand where that would physically affect you being so intense, but I can also see where those lessons could translate into waking life really well.
Yeah, it was definitely, and this was, I was young enough that I'm sure my brain was trying to put itself together still. I was, technically an adolescent, going into adulthood. And so it was at that, I don't want to say liminal, it was just like a sort of neurological transition and chemical transition stage. But I still get intense dreams and I still feel like I could probably engage with that in some way. I might need help now, like chemically, but I might actually be able to engage it in dreams if I had the energy, if I had the time to dedicate to it. I just don't know. I think it would be very different. And I'm not sure what it led to. I don't know. I don't have a clear outcome of how that shaped me, but I just remember the intensity still just, I didn't know how to explain it to people. And I was so worried I was going to become psychotic or something, but I kept it together. So I don't know. I don't know if it's just a neurological thing. I don't know what the answer to that one is. And I really wish I could deep dive it and get into it more. Because I haven't revisited that stuff since it happened, really.
When was the last time something like that happened?
I mean, I had initiation dreams as recent as 2022 or 23.
Okay.
Actually, no, that's not entirely true. I had one this summer that was interesting because it told me 30 days, and then 30 days later, we had that tornado.
Ah, okay.
So that was interesting. But not quite to that intensity. It's more, sorry, I just heard footsteps upstairs.
Oh, well, there's no one up there, so.
Did you hear that?
No.
You didn't hear it that time? Okay, it's like right there in my room, I think. I don't like that very much anyway. Hopefully it's just the house shifting. But that was just the initiation dream was probably like 2022, and that was definitely very intense, and it took me through, it was step by step, all the way from beginning to end, and I got through it. Apparently I did it, whatever that means. It's
obviously working on some level of your subconscious.
I mean, that one was ostensibly supposed to be an actual deity. Honestly, I just didn't really, I think I felt intense at points in the dream, but when I woke up, I didn't know what to do with that because I don't really work with that kind of thing. Like, my focus in life is so dry, and I generally just sort of, my special interests are like the natural sciences and stuff. So when I have these dreams, I don't really know what to do with them. I don't know how to fit that into my waking life. So I write it in detail and I see if it, has any impact later on, but that's about it.
Okay. The one thing that I've had most of the time I've lived here is the experience of either other buildings being on the property or this building having a third floor, which it doesn't really. It has an attic. But you had something similar.
I have those regularly.
Yeah.
We have, okay, so I don't know if I told you this, but we have the best chapel. It's a little, I think it's either hexagonal or octagonal chapel right over there. And I've seen it twice now. We in one dream, we were actually fighting over what color we were going to paint it. Because you wanted to paint it black on the inside. Of course, yeah. I don't remember what I wanted to paint it, but that was a whole thing.
Huh.
We were quarreling over it, so I called it the chapel querulous instead of the chapel perilous.
I will regularly dream of structures that don't exist, and they're the same structures. That's what makes it so weird. Or I will dream that I'm in my house, except it's not this house. It's not a house I've ever lived in, but I know I go back to it occasionally.
So I'd like to know about that one, because I told you about one recently where I had a lucid dream. I did an out-of-body experience, and as I was coming down the steps, it was like I went through a transition, came down here, and it was a completely different house, and I was just flummoxed. Because you were in it, and you seemed to think that was just normal. But you seem to be in your own dream state. I'd like to trade notes on that, because I know the layout of this house.
The layout of the house was one story and kind of circular. So it had a middle room, and then it had rooms around the sides.
Interesting. So I didn't get to see the rooms. I was only in one before I left.
Either of you have that?
I've had that with that house that keeps coming up tonight. Actually, well, I just realized I mentioned two houses. Anyway, my aunt and uncle's, the house that used to belong to my aunt and uncle, I've had experiences where I've had dreams of being in there and it was bigger. It had extra, like bigger rooms. I even had one dream where it was like a mansion and there was not other houses nearby, which has other houses all around it. I've had that, and I've had dreams of an extra room in the basement, this huge like game room, like almost like a arcade kind of a room down there, which doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I've had that with that house, and most of the time those dreams, again, I kind of separate my dreams into what feels like just a dream and what feels like it's more.
Right.
And those always feel like something more. I don't know what that something is, but yeah, there's something about them that's always, it sticks in my mind.
What about you? Go ahead.
I have one example like that. There's a house that I return to in my dreams periodically, entire life, even now. More sparse now that I'm older, but it still happens. And it's like, it's hard to explain the relationship. It's like, kind of like my cousins that aren't blood related to me. You know, like I called them my cousins. I grew up with them. We're not related.
Right.
And there's one of their houses. His family owned a few houses in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And in one of their houses, the one that's more downtown, it's an old Victorian and it's a pretty big house. But in my dream, it's more like a really big house, like with a ballroom stuff. And in my dream space, the house is always set up exactly the same. It's exactly the same. The mother's master bedroom is crazy. And there's like secret, I don't know, staircases and, sort of tunnels through the house. And it's like sort of semi-magical. And it's always this family's home. And it always looks exactly, the blueprint's the same. And I've gone there my entire life. But that's not what their house looks like in real life.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm trying to think of different varieties of stuff. What about psychopompic and hypnagogic stuff? Because I've gotten that a lot throughout my life.
I need you to define those words for me.
Okay, so that is when you wake up, but you are still partially in a dream state.
Oh, when you have one screen laying over the next?
Right.
When you're in both places at the same time? Yeah, that used to happen to me all the time. A lot of the time it was happening adjacent to, congruent with like sleep paralysis type
Right.
experience. Yeah. But I've only had that happen either when I'm in a moving vehicle, when I was little with my mom. Something about being with my mom in the car driving would cause that to happen, where I'd have dream space in front of me, but also whatever was happening in the car in front of me, and I'd feel stuck. Like I couldn't go back from either one. Or I lived in a house that was really haunted. And that's the only other time I've ever experienced sleep paralysis, was at the very haunted house.
Sleep paralysis, I had a lot. Don't have it quite as much now. Basically, I think because I fought back against it.
Okay.
But that would happen before I even got to sleep, which was the weird thing. I would lay down and instantly, I would close my eyes and immediately be in sleep paralysis. And there would be something like dropping on the bed behind me or something, and then I'd have to force myself to move to get it to stop.
Huh.
But what I realize is most sleep paralysis happens when you're waking up. It's more unusual when you're going to sleep, and most of mine was when I was going to sleep. There were a few times that I was asleep and couldn't wake up and realized I'm asleep. I can't wake up, and occasionally even thought, am I dead? Like, is that why I can't wake up?
I've definitely realized I was sleeping in dreams and not been able to wake up before.
There's also the false awakenings.
Eventually, but the realization that you're sleeping and that you're dreaming, and then you're like, oh, well, I should leave then. And then you don't know how,
Yeah. Or the false awakenings. Oh, I'm awake. Wait.
Yeah.
Things are not right.
No, when I was little, I would wake up and think I was awake, but then I'm still in dream space. And then I'd try to wake up again, and I would take me many layers basically to get back to my bed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What about, so you guys know like the thing where you step off you're in a dream and you sort of trip off the curb and that wakes you up. There's like a jump thing that wakes you up. Have you guys ever fallen, but then you don't wake up? Like you actually have the thing happen. You have that falling feeling, but that you don't wake up.
Yes.
And like the bad thing happens, because that's only happened to me once. And when you just said that, like, wait, am I dead? That's exactly what I thought when that happened. Because I was like, I was supposed to wake up when that happened.
Right.
Yeah.
I've died many, many times in my dreams.
Oh, wow.
And either I just continue or I rewind and stop the thing that killed me and choose a different thing.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes it becomes lucid at that point, and sometimes it doesn't.
Okay. Do you have a lot of experience, like realizing that you're dreaming and then, oh, I can just control this dream completely and just go into complete lucid dream mode?
I spontaneously have lucid dreams.
Okay.
I don't necessarily control them intentionally because I kind of, I mean, as interesting as it sounds, I kind of want to know what else my subconscious or whatever else I'm connecting with wants to show me rather than what I want to create.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. I was just curious.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah.
But, it's like I'm in a dream, I get shot, I die, and I'm like, oh, that sucks. Let's rewind that. Okay, now I didn't get shot.
That's so cool.
Either...
And once you rewind and change the scene, your dream just continues on some other path?
What did you say?
Once you rewind and change the outcome after that point where you had died previously, you just continue down a completely different path in the dream? Or do you wake up after you save yourself?
No, I continue down a different path.
Okay.
And in the ones where I die and keep going, it's kind of like, well, this sucks. I'm dead. I can't really affect anything anymore. And then eventually I'll wake up.
Oh, how interesting. I had this one, what I'll quote unquote call a past life dream, where it had to be more modern-ish times because the ships were metal and I was in a war for sure. And I was a man and I don't know anything about naval ships. So forgive me for however this comes out wrong, but I'm I'm up on the deck with other people. I have some sort of officer ranking or something because there's a little room up there where important people talk about stuff. We were in that room. And all of a sudden we just get leveled, like a bomb hits us. Obviously we're struck by something, we're hit. And I immediately die and it feels like my body goes sideways. And then all of a sudden it feels like I'm in a video game and I get shot out of my body. And even though I'm not in the body, it almost feels like that feeling in your belly, like when you're on a roller coaster or something. And I felt so passionate about wanting to be alive and wanting to be at war and wanting to be fighting. And it's like I'm punching the air, from my spirit body in the air, let me get back in there. I'm going to go get him. It was such a video game over feeling. And then I woke up, but I died first and was ethereal in space before speaking.
Either of you two, James, Natalie, ever die in dreams?
Not that I can think of, no. Not that I can remember.
I think I had a dream when I was 20 something that I was supposedly dead in a zombie, but nothing very clear, no.
Oh, that's interesting. You became a zombie.
I don't know what it was. That's all I remember because back then I didn't, bother writing dreams. I just remember my body didn't work and nothing was actually I didn't have a heartbeat and so I'd eaten or something. So when I bent over, it was terrible reflux or something because just nothing worked. And honestly, that's just kind of how life is for me. So I don't think it was really any different. I don't know. It was not profound in any way. But it just makes me think of the lyrics, the dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. That's all I keep thinking of.
I feel like there's more types of dreams than we actually realize. So the average person, of course, just thinks dreams are dreams, whatever. But I think there's such a scale of what's going on when we're in that unconscious state and what we can potentially connect to, which I'm sure a large part of that's our subconscious, but who knows what else. I guess it was a dream a week or so ago where I was able to ask my subconscious questions. And
I just said, that's cool.
Yeah. And I don't remember all of it, but it was kind of like, what do you want to know? And I'm going, and I don't remember what I asked it at first. And then I'm like, oh, am I going to die soon? And I think it responded with probably not. And I went, okay, that's not reassuring. And then I asked it, I think one of the first things I asked it is, was I on the right path? And it said yes. And I was like, okay. And I started going, wait, I could ask it anything. I'm like, is there reincarnation? And it said yes, but it's not what you think it is. And the impression I got was that you have other lives, but they're not really you.
Yeah.
You're connected, but you're connected to a source that's not the full source. And the vague impression I got was like a hand. You're the hand and you're one of the fingers. And the other fingers are other lives, but they're not you, but they're connected to you. And I forget, I also asked it if we have free will, and it said sort of, but again, not like you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't explain any further because it told me I wouldn't understand.
That makes sense to me. That fact, I think the way our brains are programmed, not just the capacity of the human brain, but the way that society has shaped our brains, it's going to make it hard for us to conceptualize certain things. We don't even have the language for it.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, there may be some things we can't understand from within this reality. If there is an outside of this reality, I mean, when people have near-death experiences, they don't experience time the same way. They don't experience much of things the same way. So, I mean, it's just possible our brains are so limited that without that direct, out-of-body state, we can't process it in our normal brains.
So you mentioned the false awakenings thing. I'm not sure if this counts as that, but I had a dream one night, or a series of dreams, where I was in a trailer where my family used to live. It was belonged to one family member, and then later another, but it's not in the family anymore. But I was there, and I didn't recognize any of the furniture, and my cat was there with me. I have a brown and black and white cat, and she was there with me, and I went to pick her up because I could feel I was not supposed to be there. I felt like I just shouldn't be there. It wasn't my home anymore. It felt like it was just too real. And as soon as I went to pick up my cat, her name is Logan, she actually bit my arm, which didn't hurt. But what it did was, as soon as she did that, I started to wake up. I started to come out of that. But this happened like 5 times. Like every time I started to wake up or come out of it, I ended up following her, going back in there. And every time, it was a little bit darker outside through the windows. And there was a couple of things that happened along the way. One time I was there, I heard movement, like someone moving around in the back of the trailer. Another time I saw a vehicle outside pulling up to the trailer outside. And every time I went to reach for my cat, she would latch onto my arm or my hand. And it took like 5 times to get back here or to wake up completely. I don't know what that was, but I think it was hilarious that I kept going back to this place and my cat had to drag me back here again 20 times in a row.
I had a singular experience where I couldn't wake up. That wasn't the singular part, but and it felt like sleep paralysis in a sense, but I was not feeling like I was in my room. I was just very, very deep in a dream. It felt like I was deep underwater, and I was trying to wake up. And finally, I was able to actually wake up. I broke through, opened my eyes, and then literally felt something wrap its arms around me and drag me down into the dream state again.
Oh, wow.
And on the one hand, it was kind of cool and also very frustrating.
Was it scary or just frustrating?
It was unnerving, I think, not necessarily scary.
Okay.
Because, like, this thing just took over. It just grabbed me and pulled me back in, and I was like, what the hell? I'd have to find my notes on it to see exactly what else happened at the time. I felt
like pulled back into dreams before, but I don't know if I felt like I was pulled by another entity.
Yeah, this literally felt like arms wrapped around me and then pulled down into the bed.
Wow.
And I know one other person who had that experience. And she told me that, and I went, whoa, okay, you're the only one that's ever mentioned that experience.
Yeah, that's wild. I've not heard anybody talk about that before. I think I would be terrified if that happened.
And it wasn't like the dream state was bad. It was just, I realized I was dreaming, and I was very, very deep in there and felt like I should probably wake up.
That was me. I could tell I shouldn't be in that trailer, and I wanted to be done with that whole experience. I just kept on. I didn't get a sense of a being pull me back there. I ended up back there, and I don't know why. But so yeah, that was odd.
I mean, I had a repeat of them, or a repeat awakening thing that had one thing that, like, sleep paralysis stuff is the only stuff that sometimes really scares me, and it's just something about it. And it's not the experience itself that scares me. It's something it triggers internally. But in this case, I had woken up, and a friend of mine who I was very close with was sleeping next to me. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, oh, wait, she's not here. And then I woke up and went, oh, okay, that makes more sense. And then suddenly a hand reached through the bed and grabbed a hold of my leg. And it terrified me. And the hand was like steel. I couldn't budge it. I couldn't do anything to it. And then I woke up again. And I went, okay, what's going on? And then I looked at my clock, and instead of numbers, there were symbols. And I went, I'm not awake. Wake up. And I'd wake up, and I don't know how many times. This must have repeated at least 10, 12 times. A couple of times I got out of bed before I saw something that wasn't right, and then I'd wake up again. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to know when I'm awake at this point?
I've had weird
repeated
dreams.
layers.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. I just was agreeing that was that like repeated layer of like trying to get up, and eventually it works. You've gotten through enough layers of whatever that is.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
Yeah, I've had weird experiences now, and this happens once in a while. I'll have a weird dream about my apartment, where I'm in my apartment, but sometimes it's bigger. Other times there's like the rooms are just bigger. Other times there's extra rooms. But usually when I have those dreams, the electronics, like the lights and the appliances are different and or they won't work. Or I'll have extra ones and just like features in my kitchen will be different. And it takes me a little while to realize that I'm dreaming, which doesn't make sense because you would think if I see an extra appliance in my kitchen or a different one that I don't have, that would be, I'd recognize right away, oh, this can't be real.
Right.
But it takes a while. Other times I've had dreams like that where the lights will not work. Like every time I flip the switch, they won't work, or
Yes.
they'll flicker on, they'll turn on slightly, but they won't stay on. And I always get a little frightened, which I don't understand why I get so frightened, but I just do. And it's weird. It takes me a while to like start to realize, oh wait, this is not how it is in reality. I think I must be dreaming, and eventually I come out of it. But I've had several of those dreams over the years, and they're always more, I don't know, unsettling when I'm in them than when I wake up and realize that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I've had the darkness dream where I'll walk into a room, I'll turn on the light, I'll shut the door, and the lights will go out, and I won't be able to turn them back on, and it just becomes very unsettling and mildly frightening for some reason.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not afraid of the dark, I don't have an issue with it. Like if this happened in real life, I'd be fine with it. I'd be like, oh, great, the light blew. But I think in the dreams, it's like I'm not there anymore. I'm somewhere else because I can't find the door. I can't find the light switch, or the doors won't open or something like that.
Yeah, and I also, because of I have light sensitivity issues, so I don't have my lights on in my apartment most of the time anyway. Only when I'm like in the kitchen or doing something that really requires light. But I mean, yeah, I prefer everything to be dark.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense for these experiences, except, and especially in the ones, now there have been some that are slightly different where I felt like I was in a bigger place and I liked it, but something about it didn't seem right. And I almost felt like there was some other intelligence there, almost trying to trick me or fool me into thinking I was actually in my home and that it was actually the way it was in the dream. And I realized, no, I don't. First of all, I feel someone else there. Second of all, this is not how my place is. This does not make sense. And it takes me a little while before I figure out, and I wake up and then everything's fine. So yeah, I don't know what all that is, but I've had several of those over the years.
All right. Well, we are out of time. So, James, where can people find you?
SalsidoParanormal.com. That's SALSIDO Paranormal.com. You can find all the episodes of my show there, as well as links to social media and ways to support the show. And everything can be found there.
Adrienne?
Currently, all I have is my art page on Instagram. It's Glass Happy.
Glass Happy.
It's true.
It's like you do glass art or something.
I do. Yeah, I've been a glass blower for 16 years, and 16 years next month, actually.
Oh, okay. And if people, and you are looking for other people who had these flying dreams.
I am. Yeah. If anybody else was there, let me know.
And Natalie?
Just the usual places at Ear Rhythm, social media for now.
And spell that for people.
EO and then rhythm, just how it sounds.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to take a moment here to thank all of my Patreons. Without you, this show would be hard to sustain. So thank you all. And a special shout out to the patrons pledging $10 or more. Greg Ross, Cherry Trapezoid, Tactical Therapist, John Blackburn, Matt in Delaware, Mark Smith, Madeline J., Marty Garza, Critter 80, Gantic, Allison Cook, Super Inframan, 36 Dingo, Sean Cosgrove, Matthew Sproul, Ruth Fortescue, Andrew Nichols, Martha, Tyler Glimstead, Christine, Mothman Bren, Mark Brady, Patricia Gaia-Quinta, Kevin Schreck, Linz Jackson K., Charles in Florida, Land of the Crazy and Communicable, Charles Davis, Kristen L., Giotto, Riker and Stark, Abby Allen, Bright Rectangle, Eric Citron, Kevin, American Rambler, Sam Sharon, Taylor Bell, Thunderboy, Eric Todd, Ann Witowski, Vincent Trewell, Will Powell, Barbara Fisher, Schmooples, Devourer of Mortal Souls, Jay, MTK, History and Coffee, Heather Wigton, Diane B., Beverly Williamson, Jim and Sophie, Jonathan Frost, Victoria, John Bracken, Paul Jeffries, Janet's Planet, Ron Dupre, Laser Printer Jam, Perry Peters, Varosh K., MJ Armstrong, Jack Huntington, Lauren McLean, Stacy Sherwood, James Lindsay, Billuminati, Strange Stories with the Seeker and Skeptic podcast, Mark Shoemaker, Ron Dupre, Will Cherry, Seed Person, The Ghost Story Guys, Liam Huddock, Harold, Annabelle Smith, Caroline Walker, TDT Skunkworks, Craig Sagastumi, Colin Karras, Matthew Brown, and Paul Guile Simpson. Thank you all so very, very much. All right, we continue this show in a Patreon segment as usual, and this is the last part of the planned dream shows for now. I hope they were interesting to everyone. They were definitely interesting to do. Oh, and if you want to become a patron, go to wheredidtheroadgo.com and click the big Patreon link. And I want to welcome a few new Patreons this week. Pat D., Jet Lambert, Alan Spriggett, Brad, and what I believe is Christoph S. Welcome, and I hope you enjoy the content and the early access and all the bonuses. Regardless, thank you for becoming a patron. I do have a quote for this week, and this one comes from Rachel Carson. Every mystery solved brings us to the threshold of a greater one. Yeah, that's a good one. And very, very true when dealing with this stuff. And that's it for this week. See you next time. You have been listening to Where Did the Road Go? This show is brought to you in part by our Patreons. You can find more at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. Website designed by John Tudor. The intro for this show was reimagined by Andrew Ham, a.k.a. Lord Happis on Spotify. And the voice is Psyche Kamir of Psyche Corporation. Artwork for the show designed by Timothy Renner, Jeff Ritzman, and Nadim Mahibahi. General inquiries, comments, etc. can be directed to contact at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Thank you all for listening and for all the support. www.wheredidtheroadgo.com.